What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with the markets heading into next week. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, guys, I want to wish you all a very, very happy Halloween. For those out there that celebrate, I hope you guys stay safe and have a very, very good time for the weekend. If not, it's A-okay, and we're just going to get started with this very quick update before the weekend starts. So I just wanted to say that SPY has a nice looking inverse cup and handle like structure, and we closed below our 4-hour 20 EMA, which is a sign of weakness. Now, with that happening, just keep in mind that there is some data coming out for next week, but for the most part, it's going to be more quiet, and the market's going to be, I think, more dependent on algorithms and price action. So, what's happening for next week? First and foremost, President Trump has concluded his trip to Asia, and now I think the focus is going to be shifted on the government shutdown. If the government shutdown could end very soon or not, so we're going to see if a funding bill could get passed. But for now, the government remains in a shutdown phase, and that is going to be delaying more data. So, for Monday, we have the ISM manufacturing data coming out at 11 o'clock a.m., but then some data is going to be delayed because of the government shutdown. On Tuesday, same thing, very, very minor data when it comes to economic optimism and treasury purchases from the New York Fed. But then the balance of trade data is going to be delayed. It's not going to be coming out alongside the JOLTS numbers. They're also not going to be coming out. So more data is delayed due to the shutdown. For Wednesday, we don't really have much coming out. We have the ISM services employment data. That's going to be quite impactful. And that's pretty much it. For Thursday, it's going to be very quiet again, just a couple of Fed speakers. Initial jobless claims is likely not going to be coming out unless the government reopens. But as of right now, we're in a shutdown phase, and that data would not be coming out if that's the case then. Same thing with Friday. As of right now, we just have the Michigan consumer sentiment data, and the unemployment numbers are likely not going to be coming out unless the government opens. So very, very quiet data. There's not really much coming out to start off November. However, despite that, when it comes to earnings, we do have some big names that are announcing earnings next week. On Monday, we have Berkshire Hathaway in the morning and Palantir after market close. On Tuesday, we have Uber, Shopify, Spotify, Pfizer in the morning, and AMD and Supermicro in the afternoon. For Wednesday, we just have minor earnings alongside Robinhood after market close. And then for Thursday and Friday, it's going to be more quiet. So very quiet week to start things off. I think it's kind of good that we're having like a more quiet week because, this week was very crazy with FOMC, the big earnings, President Trump meeting up with President Xi Jinping and all that madness. The market was kind of crazy, and now we're going to see less data and more algorithms. Hopefully, we see some more volatility because the market has been seeing a lot of choppy price action lately. And that's very common for the month of October. October is usually not the best for price action. Usually, November and December tend to be better. So, what's happening? If you look at SPY, we're making lower highs so far, and we have to try to get back above like 682.5 to try to push for 685 again. We're in a range. As we approach 680, we like to bounce, but as we hit 686, we like to reject. But so far, despite this range for the last 2 days, we're technically on a slight downtrend. We're making lower highs so far, and because we're below 682 right now, or at least we closed below the 682.620 EMA, we're favoring that we're going to be filling this gap next week for 677, and then we're going to see if we hold support at the 50 EMA, the yellow line at 677. If not, there's another gap at 672. So I think that we're going to fill at least one or two of these gaps. Then we're going to see if the market bounces after that. So be prepared for some downside as the most likely possibility. On the QQQ, we're also range bound. We like to bounce near 625 to 626, but we also like to reject near 632. That's the range for now, but notice we're making lower highs and we still have this big gap to fill. It would be very healthy if we come down to fill the gap. I think we're going to likely do that. Then we'll see if we bounce or not afterwards. But for now, I do think there's a good chance we come down lower after we consolidate some more. On the IWM, we're making lower highs. I would like to see this lose 242 if that fails us. We have 240 as our support alongside this gap fill to 237. The downside risk is there. ES, it's in the middle. There's a range between 68.94 and 68.60. That's our range. If we lose support right here, we're going to be looking to see if this gap fills around 68.38 or below. So there is some downside risk for now. On NQ, we have resistance at 26,080 and then our supports at 25,826. If that fails us, we could be dipping to fill this gap at 25,542. So be prepared for some downside. Bitcoin's rejecting here unless we hold above 111,000. We're going to be favoring 108,000. Tesla, however, is showing resilience. Although we have a head and shoulders like pattern, it's actually holding up nicely. We also have the shareholder meeting next week, so that could change things. I would like to see this dip first before it tries to bounce. Maybe afterwards, they're going to make a very important decision involving Elon Musk's pay package. So we're going to see if that causes some volatility. But as of right now, Tesla's outperforming the markets. And as long as we're above 455, we're favoring the 460s again. So Tesla might try to push, and the share price may actually try to bounce and invalidate this head and shoulders. Now Tesla is showing some strength. Nvidia, however, is showing some weakness. It might retest 200. We'll see if we bounce off that or not. If we don't, the reason I'm a little bit concerned about Nvidia is look at the setup. We have a bearish daily candlestick right here. There's a gap over here to fill near 200, and then there's 3-4 more gaps below in the 190s and 180s. I would like to see those get filled before we try to bounce, but we'll see just to be safe. Apple pumped and dumped after earnings. There's a gap down here around 262, so it might see some downside next week. On AMD, there is a head and shoulders like pattern. There is a gap down here at 235, but no promises could be made until we see earnings. We're going to see if this dips or not. We're going to see if the head and shoulders pans out or not. There is a risk of downside though on it. Coinbase has been pumping and dumping. We need to hold above 345. If we don't, 339 and 330 could be tested. Amazon could also be dipping back down to 242 to the low 240s. Looking at Meta, we could be dipping back down towards 650. If that doesn't hold, we could be dipping more. On Google, we might be dipping back down to 277. We're going to see if this holds. If not, we could be dipping to 272. And then Microsoft also could be dipping back down a bit lower. So we have 515 as our support and 524 as our resistance. Might bounce a bit before it falls, but overall, it's on a bit of a downtrend. Lastly, Oracle has been trying to bounce. It does look like it might go higher for like 265, then eventually 270 next week. And we'll see if you reject. Finally, the VIX is starting to uptrend. There's also a gap over here, a tiny gap around 19. Maybe it dips before it tries to bounce, and that could be a sign that the market does have some downside risk. So look for some consolidation, then eventually a dip to 677 and 672, excuse me, on SPY. And for the triple Q, we have a double top-like pattern that could also imply that there is some downside risk. Although we have to watch for confirmation just to be safe, just know the risk is to the downside for now, looking at the way the market is starting off. But just remember this, okay? When October started, okay, when we go back on the chart, October ended up being a more bullish month for the markets, but keep in mind, right here, when October started, the market actually had like 2 weeks of selling and consolidation. October started off with a little bit of a push, then we got this big sell-off and consolidation that came up until mid-October, and then we saw this big recovery, right? And for the year, every time we've gotten some kind of like a significant sell-off, every time we dumped, we just pumped back up. We dumped, we pumped back up. So if we get some kind of big sell-off, if we do return to fill the gap on the QQQ at 610, that could be nothing more than a buying opportunity for an end of the year squeeze. I would like to see us fill these gaps early on, and then we could be looking for some potential long positions. Not financial advice. I'm just saying that that is a possible opportunity. If SPY comes down to 672, which is essentially near the previous all-time high, this area could be acting as a support. And if we get a nice bounce here, that could also be another buying opportunity. So I just want to clarify that I'm not a perma bear. I'm not saying the market's going to crash. I'm saying that this could be a dip that's coming, which may be a good buying opportunity for the end of the year squeeze if we do end up holding support. All right, so just something to keep in mind. I will go into more details about that. For now, just watch your setups, and I thank you all so much for listening. Please enjoy the rest of your guys' days. And once again, have a very happy Halloween and awesome weekend. I'll maybe be back tomorrow. I'm going to see if I upload a video or not. I do kind of feel like I want to take a break, but I'll see about that. However, for sure, I will be back on Sunday. No doubts about that. I will be uploading a video on Sunday to talk about what's happening with the markets. So I'll see you guys for sure on Sunday. And maybe tomorrow, if I do get time to record a video, I will see about that depending on my schedule. Thank you all so much for listening. Enjoy the weekend and peace out.